Hey champions, today's our first Deck Tech Friday. I am very excited about this. I'm going to be jumping into a deck that is going to really emphasize a core component of deck design, which I love, which is breadth versus depth. So let's get into it. Hey champions, it is Deck Tech Friday. I wish I did a special little intro thing, but we'll see how this goes, how many deck techs that I have to talk about and kind of dig into. And over time, we will discuss, we will invest more time and effort to make these videos a little bit more flashy for you. But let's just jump into the deck tech and get everything ready. All right, let's jump into the deck tech. We are on the Genesis website /xlib, exploring the libraries. This again can be found under events and deck tech submission contest. So we got the deck tech submission. Assignment number 5 is up. If you're interested in it, updating the demo decks. I've already seen some people submit some stuff. So if you want to know what this is, it's adding in 10 more cards to both the Raha and Malik demo decks. If you want to see those demo decks, they're here. They are also already, I think, on the table for in Tabletop Simulator. So if you are doing your deck techs on there, it's already live there. So you don't have to think about what's in those decks. You just go grab them and start modifying them. And the explanation is very important when it comes to this assignment. Very much want to know what is your thought process behind adding these cards, but also taking into consideration, imagine you're a brand new player. What are going to be the tools accessible to you? Imagine if all you got was these demo decks and then you bought a booster box and you're like, okay, I want to expand this deck. What would I add into it? And going from there. So once you have the deck tech up, you can submit it through this form. So just giving all your information. But if you want to look at old deck tech contests, the all down here, here's assignment 4 and the submissions for that, assignment 3, assignment 2, assignment 1. So we're actually going to be going back to assignment 2 and taking a look at this deck submitted by DC Minion. So I already have it up. Let's talk about this one, Walls of Alim. So let's zoom in a little bit so you can see this much clearer. So Raha used for her long range, awesome. Combust 15, Alims 20, Bolt Shots 15. Very clean cut numbers, not a lot of diversity here. Let's talk about breadth versus depth. I think that's going to be a good topic to discuss when it comes to this deck tech. So let's read this out. So how I play the deck. With only 3 different cards in the deck, odds are I'm going to get one of them. Add 20 of the Alims. I'm going to have a few in my opening hand. That being said, card advantage is pretty cool. So all your Alims besides your champions, get those to draw 1 card triggers. The breakthrough, if you have 6 plays, all 6 draw 6 more. And then so the most you can put out is 7. Already recognizes some of the issue here. So of the 20 that you put in your deck, you're only going to be able to play 7. 20 cards, that's 40% of your deck. If you're playing a 5-round game, you're going to draw 10 cards, which of those 10 cards, 40% of that would be 4 of them. So you can play all of them. That's awesome. How many rounds do you need to hit until you play all of them? So 7 divided by 0.4, right, is the math we're looking at. So I don't know. I can't do the math off the top of my head. But we're at least looking at close to 20 rounds. 18 rounds. Somewhere between, it's 16 to 20 rounds. All right. So all the Alims are discarded for food, for combust. Looks like you won't actually have to get to that point in most games. And then you just get a wall between opponents. Well, actually, Alims draw into each other. So it's going to be significantly less than 20 rounds. Okay, you got me. Let's dig into that. Between opponents and champions, yourself, all your combustes and Alims. Once we have the opponent's champion pin, we are going to spam our range attacks and bolt shots. With having an arena full of summons, we gain turn advantage, allowing us to set up the field the way we need it while the opponent stays exerted. So let's talk about breadth versus depth. This is one of the more this is one of the more valid conversations when it comes to deck techs, because a lot of people who come from other collectible card games or miniature games or other of these games that put in restrictions on the number of a particular item that you can play with, you are forced by the design of the game to create breadth across your deck. So breadth is the number of unique items, depth is the amount of copies of a single item. So when we're looking at the amount of unique copies, you have to create a spread in other games because the game forces you to. In Genesis, you don't. You could literally run a deck which is 50 copies of the exact same card. So that's a lot of depth in one card, no breadth at all. So your breadth is 1, your depth is 50. We'll say 50. So here we have the depth, the breadth is 3. And then the depth is about 12, 20. So about 15, 16 is basically the amount of copies on average of a given card. Here's the thing. When you first play this deck, it could throw your opponent off. They're going to be like, okay, I did not see that coming. It decimated me, and you do really well. However, when you get into the second game, when your depth in your deck is so intense, your deck becomes predictable. And look at Alims. They have 3 health. How many cards can consistently do an AoE damage of 3? We're talking Tsunami, that's your big threat. Landslide is another big threat because, however, with the higher aura cost, you're going to see fewer of them, but Tsunamis you'll see a lot of. Hurricane Sweep. Your Alims are going to come in for an attack, sweep them all away, they're gone. That does leave you a little bit more exposed, so that's a little bit more of a risk. But now we're talking Bellum is covered, Thymos is covered with the Landslide, Axon is covered with Tsunami, Chaos is covered with Meteorite. The last thing you want to do is play all these Alims. Just say you beckon 5 of them in the first round to draw 5 cards. They drop a Tsunami, middle tier. They don't even have to go top tier, but just say they go... they could go top tier. There's nothing you can do about it. They go middle tier. What in your deck's going to save any of this? Is going to counteract any of your opponent's plays? Very little. So they're going to drop that Meteorite, middle tier, hit you and all your Alims for the 3 damage, wiping them all out. And now, what is your recovery point at this point? You got Cabusses, but most Cabusses can fall to the built-in attack of the champion and any of those AoEs. When we're talking about card economy, we're talking about you play 6 Alims. Yes, you draw 6 cards, which is great. Your hand size is the same. But the amount of aura you've now spent has dropped really significantly. So if I just play 1 card and counteract all those Alims, all that aura, I now have aura advantage. You've now thinned your deck out, so doing some of those other stuff is going to be challenging, like playing all those bolt shots. Are you going to have enough resources to deal with that? And now you have to use your bolt shots to start as your win con, which is normally your win con against your opponent. What happens if your opponent starts dropping other threats? Things like Angels of Retributions, things like Lightless. Your deck cannot deal with the diversity of other decks out there because your depth is so intense. So now the other swing to it is if you're just running 1 copy of every single card, like a Highlander deck, or if you play Magic, of EDH, or what is it called, Commander. It creates a lot of interesting games because every single game is so unique. However, you're now not predictable to yourself. You don't know what your next move's going to be, and you want to be able to find a balance between dealing with the diversity of decks out there and being consistent within yourself, knowing what you can do every single turn. Now, that doesn't mean that every single turn you need to draw a bolt shot, but it does mean that every single turn you need to be confident that the next move, your next card, is going to give you the advantage that you're looking for. It's going to be able to set yourself up for success. So this, as a deck, is something I would do if I'm like, all right, I want to see how strong Alim is. So I'm going to pick a win condition, bolt shot. I'm going to find something to balance that out and just run as many Alims as possible. I would do this in Future League as a testing measure. And then if I really enjoy this deck, I want to refine it, I would look into Okay, now what am I pulling out? What am I replacing? Maybe I replace half those Alims with Tsunamis to give me some diversity against the Swarm decks. Pull out some of the Combustes and Bolt Shots for Dedicated Studies and Chrono Walkers. Dedicated Studies gives me a cheaper way to filter through my deck, finding a core component, and Chrono Walkers gives me some evasion. Now you're starting to create a little bit more breadth in your deck and reducing some of your depth, so your deck's not as predictable to your opponent, but it does give you some diversity to deal with other situations. So think about that when it comes to the whole entire chi system. Breadth versus depth. So that's everything I want to talk about for today. Thank you, DC Minion, for posting this deck up. It is a great starter deck. I think it's a great place for new players to explore, test this out, see how much they like it, and then look into what changes they want to do moving forward. That's it for today. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. As I close off this video, I want to remind you to support your local game stores. They are the backbone of the hobby industry. Also, please follow and support our partner content creators. They're working very hard to make content that you are interested in. Finally, I want to give a huge shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. Without you, this game would not be where it is today. Thank you for being awesome, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.